Rutgers loses 65-51 in the opening round of the Big Ten tournament. And the 2023-2024 season is officially over. Rutgers, losers of 7 of its last 8 games, and all in double-digit deficit. Not even really able to string together a sentence here. Extremely disappointed. It was an embarrassing way to go out. Maryland hit their first, was it 4 3-pointers? I'm not going to be able to go through the stats as detailed as normally because Stats Broadcast, for some reason, reset the Maryland Rutgers stats to the Michigan Penn State game right now. I have some stats to go through. It's probably better. We all don't agonize over it because it was brutal. Maryland jumped out to a 16-3 lead at the first media timeout, and they lost by 14. It wasn't that close, and it was just a really disappointing effort. The urgency wasn't there. The energy wasn't there. This team was not connected. And unfortunately, this team looked every bit checked out that we feared they could be. And I think the most disappointing thing these last few weeks and the way the season ended, I think last season was different. The team, first of all, was very good for the majority of the season. They obviously suffered that Mawat Mag injury, and they really struggled to regain their identity and regain their footing. This season obviously was not nearly as successful earlier on, but when Jeremiah Williams came back, they had the 4-game winning streak. I mean, this team was 14-10, 6-7 in the Big Ten. They still had an uphill battle, but they had a fight. They had a puncher's chance, and the way it unraveled. And the manner in which they did unravel, the identity of this program, what Steve Peichel has built this program on, went away. And that was the most disheartening thing to watch. Defensively, I mean, this team's still number 4 defensive efficiency nationally, but they have not been the same defensive team in the last 4 weeks. Offensively, they somehow got worse. They just did not play together. They did not play for each other. They did not play with an intensity that's needed to be successful at this level. They did not play. They did not communicate in a way that you need to at this level. And they just looked disinterested at times. There were many games where they came back. And then I think above all, it's the lack of mental toughness that was disturbing, because once they got punched in the mouth, unfortunately, things started to fall apart, and they just couldn't get back off the mat. Physicality was certainly missing. I think that was, that's been part of the identity as well. And all those key components were not there. And even when, Steve Peichel's first 2-3 seasons, there was a certain level of buy-in. There was a certain level of toughness that his teams had that this team did not have. And that's the hardest part that I think, in terms of watching this team. We can bemoan the offense, we can bemoan the poor shooting, and it was bad. This team was not smart offensively in how they approach things. They were unable to generate good looks at times, and when they did have good looks, they couldn't make them. I've discussed some of the reasons. I really think a lack of point guard killed this team. Obviously, personnel-wise, the way the roster was assembled, in terms of the losses they suffered, in terms of the additions they made, the injuries they had. There's plenty of reasons, right? But they still should have been better despite those obstacles. And Peichel has always been preaching about needing to overcome obstacles, and this team just didn't have that. They didn't have it, and that was the hardest part to take for me. Uh, and it's a sad ending for Andre Hyatt, for Cliff Amori. Cliff can return. I don't expect him to return. Um, Andre showed up today. And honestly, I want to say Andre Hyatt, he had the best season, the most consistent season of anyone on the team. He struggled at times. He honestly, it wasn't fair to ask him to be the number one guy, but I thought he played admirably all season. I thought that he did his best. I think he tried. He tried to be a leader too. Um, today, I mean, he had 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals coming off the bench. I thought that, yeah, and 13 points. He was 4-9 from the floor. He always did what was asked of him, over the 3 years. And I mean, on the surface, he never complained. And I've always heard great things about him behind the scenes. He's a program guy, and he is him and Cliff now. I mean, they're the last remnants of the core that rebuilt this program. And everyone, they obviously had varying degrees of in terms of their roles, but I think Andre Hyatt deserves all the respect, for sure. The way he played this year, the way this was not the way he wanted to go out, of course, but I think he honestly did about as much as he could have. He just didn't have enough help. He didn't have enough like-minded guys on the team. Cliff, I think the same. He obviously was much more up and down this season. His frustrations were visible. And today, I mean, 2 points, 5 rebounds. It's tough to see him, if this is it, for this to be it, the way it happened. But at the same time, you have to thank him for the 4 years he's given this program. And he has developed. He might not have developed offensively the way everyone hoped he had, or he didn't, but he became an elite rim defender. He, was the consummate teammate. He was, great for the program. He's a great role model for people. And, I mean, multiple times Big Ten honors, um, you know, twice All Big Ten defensive team. I'm not sure where he is blocks wise in terms of program history. He's top five. Uh, he, it's just sad, for both of those guys. I'm sad for them, and you have to thank them for what they did. Noah Fernandez and Austin Williams are two guys that were a bit of journeymen in their career. They both had some serious injuries along the way. I think it legitimately impacted both of them this season, and it's sad for them as well. Austin Williams is a Jersey guy. I loved Noah's mentality, and for what they had flashes this season, and I obviously they wish it turned out differently, but you have to respect them as well. And Oscar Palmquist was, the ultimate program guy. Teammates love him. He had his moments over the last 2 years. He can come back too. I don't think he's going to come back. We'll see what happens. But remember, this is actually like his 5th year because it was his 9th semester, even though he does have a year left. But listen, all the guys that are at the end of their eligibility or 4-year guys that might not come back, they're all quality individuals. And, as easy as it is to get behind a keyboard and get on social media and criticize people and, kind of have a lack of humanistic approach, maybe, I don't know. It's easy to just dismiss that, but all these guys, gave a lot to this program and to the game of basketball, and whatever they go on to do, I wish them the best. And it's unfortunate that this season ended the way it did for them. As for the rest of the roster, listen, I mean, Gavin Griffiths got a start tonight. He showed up. He scored 16 points. What was he from three? He shot with confidence. He was 5 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 8 from three. He did have 3 rebounds. Overall, he was the lone bright spot this last month. I mean, he stepped up. He's gotten better defensively. He's gotten better in terms of his approach. He's gotten better in terms of his aggressiveness, his confidence. Everything's improved. I think his, shot selection has improved, but still needs to get better. I think having a point guard in Dylan Harper, I think having, more athletes on the floor, more talent on the floor, there's going to be better spacing for him. He has the ability to, when he's got creators around him, he's going to profit. And, I don't want to get it too much into the roster right now. I did an episode 2 days ago just talking about roster moves and, the offseason approach and Steve Pikiel's mindset. And I'm going to be back on Thursday. I'll have more of a detailed discussion just in terms of, what's next, what needs to change, things to look for in the portal, all things like that. That'll be tomorrow. This is more of just kind of a, giving, just kind of reading the last rites of this season and this team. And it's unfortunate. And there's plenty of, I mean, everyone's responsible for it. And obviously Steve Pikiel, I don't think it was for lack of trying. I thought the lineup tonight, going big against Maryland was actually kind of, I liked it, with Oscar and Gavin starting. He talked after the game. I was on his press conference on the Zoom call, and he was talking about, his number one key for the game was the glass and rebounding. Rutgers was minus 12 on the glass. It didn't work. A lot of what he tried this year didn't work. But you can't look anyone in the eye and say that he just was complacent and sat on his hands and just never tried to adjust. Just nothing really worked. And listen, he deserves criticism for lack of roster development. The recruiting the last 3 years. I mean, overall, what the classes have yielded, it's not enough. But he to his credit, I mean, he seems to get that. He seems to want to adapt to the ever-changing NIL transfer portal era. He said he was on a mission to improve things dramatically. He said that in the post game. And listen, I mean, we're all frustrated. We're all upset. This is not where we want the program to be. It was a disheartening way to see this program nosedive at the end of the season with so many blowout losses and just a lack of fight, from the team as a whole. And shooting was dreadful. But it wasn't just that. There was more problems than that. And now we have an off season here, a lot to look forward to, a lot to discuss. The heat is on. There's going to be a ton of pressure. And we'll see what becomes of the roster, but I expect a lot of changes. I expect things to happen pretty quickly. And, it is going to be time to turn the page. But for fans that, care about every game, these last few games were tough. They were tough to sit through. They were tough to watch. They were tough to take. And I do think that, I'm a journey guy, and I feel like the suffering endured this past month and last year as well, these last 2 years, hopefully will be rewarded next season and will make whatever success occurs next season that much sweeter. And I think that's how you have to look at it, because I hope everyone appreciates whatever success is had next season. And there's no guarantee of that success by any means. And this is a very crucial period for the program, for Steve Pikiel, and we're going to plenty of time to get into that now. And if there is a blessing, the season is over. Rutgers can rebuild right now. I mean, the process is in motion. And that is a bit of an advantage right now because there's a lot of teams still playing. And every day counts. And I think that, for the season that they had, for the offseason they're going into, for the class they have coming in for next season, it could be a blessing to have this time now to figure things out, to have a plan, to get into the portal, to know what you got on the roster, what you need. It's March, and get it done. And I think Peichel is pretty focused on that. So, as bad as this game was, as bad as the last month has been, I do think there is some positive momentum, which, if you think about it, is pretty crazy. I mean, as bad as things have been these last few games, there is legitimate reasons to be positive, and there's legitimate momentum in this program, despite what's happened. So that's the most important thing out of all of it, and that's what I'm going to take away from it. I really appreciate everyone who's listened and watched all my game previews, all my rapid reactions this season. I'm going to have plenty of content coming up. There's going to be a ton to cover this off season. I'm excited about it. I'll be back tomorrow with a much deeper dive into the state of the program and recruiting and all that. But thank you. I hope I made some of the suffering a little bit easier. We go through it together. We're Rutgers fans. And I truly believe that some lessons learned from these past 2 seasons and last off season and what resulted with this season can really benefit this program and Steve Peichel moving forward. Thanks for listening to the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.